All right, it's 8:36. We're going to get started, and Frode is going to be speaking today. This is his birthday, so I'd like to start with everybody wishing him a happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Frode. And please take it away.
Thank you. Birthdays are so cool. You can get people to do anything, including you guys to come here. I'm very, very grateful. So Andrea was asking interrupt or not. Yes, do interrupt by putting a hand up. Dini will do the interruption business. We'll immediately go to the slideshow. And yeah, interrupt. But also, as I said, the text chat will be read later. So if you have some idea for, oh no, I should change the color on this interface thing or whatever, just write it down. Hang on, I have to make you guys a bit smaller. I love you all, but you were taking up the text space here. You can all see, right? Any issues? No?
Yes.
Okay.
Just fine.
So making text more visual is kind of ostensibly the title for today. I need to highlight that I come from an art background, not a technology background. That's my perspective. Is this philosophy? I don't know. In my experience, whenever philosophy becomes useful, it's not really philosophy anymore. It's just something useful. So what you're going to get here is my perspective on stuff. Take it or leave it, but this is what made author. So I'm dealing with what I call digital knowledge text, meaning things like academic text, other text where you care about the content. Nothing wrong with all kinds of other text, but that's not what this is about. So the development context is, as you all agree, otherwise you wouldn't be here, I think, the potential of digital text has not nearly been realized. By the way, there is a bit of text on these slides because it's on Zoom, so I don't have a second screen. And here's the thing, change is hard and people follow systems. That means that in order to improve how text is interacted with, we need to provide new systems, not just wave our hands in the air and say, oh, we don't like what it is and try a little thing. And that's why I'm so grateful that you guys are part of the dialogue we have, the social side symposium today, the Mondays, the book, and also the metadata and the development aspect of it. And that is, of course, also why it's so important that we integrate with existing systems. And the goal is to help by building truly augmented knowledge work systems where text truly empowers thought and is free to move around the greater system unencumbered. The last bit, even though it's not yellow, is crucial. No single company or person can do everything. We have to have freedom of data flow. So Author is a concrete implementation of this and part of the open data ecosystem. And this is a kind of a biggie point. The development process. I feel that who we are is what we think about when we don't have to think about something else. We are what we think. I think about this stuff obsessively. A lot of you are also obsessive about related things. I think you can understand. So I think about it a lot. I use the software for my own work. I am my #1 user. And then big, massive text, write the user guide, which is so important because if I can't explain it in the user guide, I might need to change it. This is probably partly why documentation with software is so hard, because that's where you realized you messed up in places and you have to go back. That continues with dialogue with other users. Thank you for you being here today on process and specific things like Keith would say, move that a little bit to the left. And then think some more, Photoshop, and then go back and then talk to Jonathan who says, what are you doing? Change that again. And I say, thank you, you're absolutely right. And then finally, I really want to emphasize this is a bit of an ego trip today, and I'm grateful you're here, and I hope more of you will do the same, because putting together a presentation of your honest work, not what it is in the end, but how it's done, if it doesn't make sense here, if I can't explain it to you, I should change it. So I've done quite a few changes based on this presentation. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Right, 2 aspects of today. I'm going to present the dimensions of design and a case study of Author. This, I'll fly through the dimensions of design because even though it was a hidden agenda, the point is partly to overwhelm you. So if it's a bit fast, there is a point to it. The point is to say there are so many aspects of design, and so many of you in this community are designers in different areas. So if we first look at the roles of text, when we're authoring, the text can help us organizing, navigating, deal with context, relationship, finding things, and reading for pleasure. Text perform different roles. When we're reading, we have to take into account the audience as well when it's textual reading. So lots of things can be written about all of these aspects of the roles of text. Then we have to look at the context of text, the actual display. What kind of display do we expect it to be read on? Do we even know what the display is? In many cases, we don't. Language, fonts, and so on. And then it comes on to our mental models. Are we skimming the text? Are we deep reading, reading out loud? These are very, very different things that the text is helping us do. Exposition. What is the text trying to communicate? In which manner? Is it as a library, an outline, paragraph, sentences? Very different jobs for the text. And of course, text for authoring, which is what we're talking about today, once it's published in some form, becomes text for reading. It becomes something else. So if we kind of start at a top, not the top, in the library type view, we have book covers, right? We can also group by groupings, literally, or by showing connections. So then questions become book covers, which we don't have in all academic papers, of course, but what purpose should they serve? What should be shown? These are disciplines of typography and design, and also what is to be communicated. And that relates to something we do have more in academia, which is kind of the front matter or abstract page. What purpose should that serve? What should be shown? As a designer, these are really, really interesting and difficult issues. And this example here goes to the case study we'll look at soon, because this is automatically generated in author to support the reader. It also supports the authoring because when you export, you can have a ChatGPT generated summary of your paper that you can then either just use or delete and write your own or edit. Point of it is, if it is AI generated, it gives you an impression of what something else thinks your text is. If it's completely saying something you didn't mean to say, maybe you need to change your document before you export. And outline. Questions of what outlines should do.
Let me interrupt you for a second. Jonathan asked a question. Isn't the cover a graphical summary, like a title is a textual summary?
Who's asking?
Jonathan, which I think is a great question.
Maybe summary isn't the right word, but something like that.
A cover like this is probably to sell in a different way, not necessarily commercially sell, but communicate its coolness like we have for proceedings and stuff. But the next one, it's definitely it is to sell the idea of what is inside is relevant to the reader. So it is to give a very good summary. Yes, I would agree with that. And
Tom says it's a metaphorical representation of the ideas in the book, and I agree with that too. It's also, so it's a combination of many things. The cover is very important, right? And if you look at the covers today of bestsellers, there's a style, kind of this contemporary style. And if you look at the covers of books over the course of the last 100 years, that style has changed immensely. I think of bodice rippers, right? The bodice rippers, the romance novels of the 80s and 90s with Fabian, what's his name? What's his name? The guy with the long hair.
Fabio.
Fabio, always on the front cover. That was the teaser, right? It's also an important selling point. Absolutely, Keith.
Yeah, completely agree. So then we look at something as innocent as an outline. What's the point of an outline? And also, is the outline different when you are reading or when you're authoring? Probably. We will get to outlines later on in this. So even when it comes to normal reading or deep reading, different people have different visual requirements. Based on our eyes, based on the environment we're in. So now we're looking at author. It allows for all these different kinds of themes for the text. I think that the text is visual. Of course, there's braille and voice and so on, but graphical text is visual, so the way it appears is really, really important to me. So when we come to getting close to design, the things we have to work with, first of all, is the writing itself. There's no question that better writing, no matter how it's presented, will be better than something beautifully presented and it's rubbishly written. That's not controversial, but it's really important to emphasize supporting the author through various means to be able to make better writing. And then we have all the traditional things of designing pages, designing layouts, and all of that to consider. But if we look back at the roles of text, the context of text, the mental modes, expositions, and so on, it is really important to keep in mind that what text is changes. when you're writing it, when you're reading it, depending on how you're reading it, is not the same thing. That complicates things, and it makes a fantastic design opportunity. So it could be said that all text is interactive, even paper text, because you need to use your brain to somehow interact with it. For me, how that interaction is unleashed is the challenge, and also what is exciting. This is basically what I live for. So case study, author redesign. Any questions or comments on the previous before we're going into nitty gritty?
Well,
just one.
Okay, please, Mark.
Sorry, did I jump in?
Please. No, please.
No, it was really just passing point. I fully agree with you in terms of, the some thought going into the way to text is presented and things. But I found myself thinking with a book, I don't so much notice good typography as I certainly notice bad typography. With an ebook, I know I'm always going to get something subpar, but it's okay and I can read it. So there's an interesting change there between paper and digital representation of paper.
100%. I am one of those people who absolutely prefer paper. No question about it. It is much more pleasant. But when it comes to knowledge work, paper doesn't do the stuff we need it to do in it.
Tom has it hand up. Tom?
Sorry.
Yeah, just a quick question there. How does the nature of the text input change the relationship between the author and the text? For instance, I quite often dictate rough drafts into my, into a Google Doc or something, and then go from there, versus the blank page phenomenon where you're sitting there going, okay, where do I start? Just curious what you think about that.
I'm not going to tell you because that's too exciting. That's the exact kind of question. Actually, I do approach it in a few slides. That's why I'm not. But it really does. It hugely does. But the way you said it like that, the blank page phenomenon, I greatly thank you. I will be quoting that in the future. So I'll approach that in a few slides.
I was going to make a comment myself, Frode. We're talking about, you mentioned interactivity. We teach interactivity theory in our program here, and there's 3 levels, right? And the low level is the paper or even a performance or anything that just expects a response, but there's no necessarily reaction. So when I turn a page of a book, it doesn't turn the page back, right? So there is interactivity, but it's low level. And the difference between the stuff that we do with electronic literature and paper is significant for that reason.
There is a slide similar to that coming up, Dini. Thank you. It is such an important point. Oh, goodness, right. 4 design goals. And again, I reiterate, this is just, I'm not pretending to represent the world. Number 1, I think interactivity is really crucial. Doug Engelbart talked about symbol manipulation, which is a bit more well said, but just basic interaction. I think that if people can get better to grips with their knowledge, literally use their hands and feel more, they will do more with it. And also, now that this is it's been a commercial product for a while, but I now think I'm going to ask Apple to promote it more. They've been quite good. So I have to be honest and be more welcoming. And I find that that's very, very useful. For the first many years of this, before this redesign, it was mostly for you guys, my friends in the group. And if you had a problem, you bitched and moaned to me. And I thank you for that. Sorry for using that language, but I didn't feel I needed to really present an easy pathway. And now I've got to do that. And it makes it better for you as well. So here's the thing, provide a distraction-free environment, also providing interactions. This is the key to the fun. And how can people even know that there is stuff? I hate the term surfacing, but there you go. So these are the goals. So this is the current user guide. I skimmed that really quickly just to show you there's a lot of stuff that has to be designed to fit together. And this is the slightly older user guide. When I started this redesign, quickly in summary, no color to mark text, few themes, no journal, old toolbar, overly long context menus, basic and hidden outline, no citations view, no map layouts or show or hide, no AI, no external links, no useful margins, and cuttings less used. Of course, I had normal links, but not document links. This is the starting point. 2 design principles, very obvious, but if everything is emphasized, nothing is. I'm mentioning this because in our community, sometimes we go between very simple and very heavily designed pages, and how do you actually emphasize stuff is interesting. And a key thing is that our capacity to take in visual information is, of course, limited. And therefore, non-informative elements can provide a shaping benefit or be a hindrance cost. There's stuff you can put on the page that doesn't say something in itself. It may be a mess, it may help. I think that's important to keep in mind and not just let things be there. So therefore, we must add ways to see, plural, many ways. However, as we talked about, change requires effort. Even clicking to do something else kind of change. And then there is my personal little thing, which has matured a little bit over the years. Information should be visually available, tools within hands reach. And then there is one more. Invisible design principle. If we can design away an interaction, do so. It is not about designing neat things. If you can do something for the user so the user no longer has to do something, get rid of it. Unless it contributes to thinking, if it's a clerical task, get rid of it. It's sometimes hard to throw away the babies, as we say, if we really love how they are, but if we can get rid of it, do it. So the design issue becomes to examine how and what to show and hide and how to do it. Scrolling and linking is not enough. Writing is visual, so we should be able to, and these are the main characteristics there, we should be able to change focus, which means change display and layout. Writing is connected and digital text is interactive, so we need to unleash the connections, meaning view and manage contexts. Writing is a form of information compression, so we should be able to change how much is shown. This slide could probably be argued over for a couple of hours. It is only here as a bit of mental scaffolding to look at things. There are a myriad of better ways, I am sure, to look at it than this. So don't worry about reading the gray stuff, because all I'm saying here is, how can we allow people to write long form text to hand in for a journal, for instance, while doing all these other things and without having lots of buttons? 3 aspects. 1, improve onboarding, including the user guide, make settings welcoming to encourage mastery. I really think that's important. Most people don't go to settings, but settings is where you tweak things to fit it to you. And then there's the fun thing with friends, review and all standard interface elements for simplicity and clarity. Visual commands should be clear. Should be few of them, but they got to be clear if they're there. And then the 3, focus, connection, and compression that we'll get into more later. Improving onboarding, as I said, writing the user guide is hard, very, very hard, but very useful. And because the software is a word processor, the user guide is in the format of the word processor, so as you read it, you can do the stuff you read about straight away to the text. That's kind of helpful. Making the settings more welcoming. Making the little icons up there took months, back and forth, tweak this. It's incredible how easy it is to mess those things up, even those tiny details. So here the attempt is in the settings to have a welcome screen. I haven't seen that elsewhere. It's just so it doesn't feel like you're going to the technical guts of a ship. You are going to the bridge to say hi. Introduction, a video you click on where you can see the video we're doing now, plus a more normal video, some tips, and a big button to email me so I can say, oops, I'm sorry with whatever issue you have. The other tabs have to be designed again and again and again, both because we change features, because they also need to be, they need to make sense. And the term intuitive, I don't really like, but I found that if I watch my own usage, and for instance here, the theme is on top, changing the color, very often that's not where I expected it to be there, but it wasn't. So I changed based on where my mouse was, just through watching my own basic movements. This one is a mess, it has to be, it's a lot of stuff, I'll tell you later, same with the Ask AI. Views, one I expect people to use more, just like appearance, where you can really customize your experience. So someone posted on some social media the other day a screenshot from the Mac where eject or erase disk is right next to each other. So it's a bit of a joke for normal interface elements needing a bit of polish. So most of the commands in Author are control click. If you don't want to do control click, Author wouldn't really be for you. And the key thing here is I keep adding features as we build them and then removing them, because a control click menu, a context menu in any shape, if it's too much, I think we all become a little bit, oh, what's that word for when you can't read text? Dyslexic. At least my eyes go a bit glazed over. When you don't select text, you also get a context menu with different commands. And please notice that the keyboard shortcuts are there. That is so as you use it, you can train yourself to use the keyboard shortcuts if you want to or not. I don't know why that's not a standard Mac thing in context menu, but we have it and it seems to work. Here is a screenshot of my journal just to illustrate a little bit of a process of one thing. Because I'm designing author and reader together, things have to be coherent. So one thing I've done is, after going through all kinds of options, command option, arrow down goes to the next heading. So you can run through your document. It's a feature that not a lot of people will use because using arrows in a word processor, not scrolling, isn't that natural. But to experiment back and forth to get to a point where you have a really kind of a top-heavy way of doing it, you lift up to the next heading all the time, gives you a certain clarity of reading. So let's talk about AI for a minute because it's fashionable. We do not want the software that I designed to do your work for you. Do not want to write a few bullet points so that the system turns into an essay. Someone has to use an AI to turn it into bullet points. This is how AI works in Author. I say AI versus IA, intellect augmentation. You click lower left-hand corner in the toolbar, or keyboard shortcut, of course, and you get a pop-up menu. So now, for instance, if you do /ask you questions, it takes that text, runs it, and then asks you questions. So here, we use ChatGPT currently. It's asking you, how do you blah, 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 right?
Hey, Frode, there's a comment by Mark in the chat. It says, ask AI is the first context item. It seems an odd choice. Why not get the app to just write the doc?
The what?
Well, it just seems odd that I mean, you're trying to write a document, and the first thing on the context thing is go ask somebody to do something else for you. It just seems an odd thing to put first.
You mean
I mean, it's obviously a deliberate choice, so I just wonder why that's more important than all the other things on the context menu.
Do you mean answer?
No, a couple of screens back, you'd put up about two more screens back. You'd shown a context menu. There you go. So the top thing is ask AI. It just struck me as a strange choice. So I wonder what was your design intent there.
Oh, well, this is a great question, Mark, because my answer is absolute rubbish. It was new. So it hasn't really matured. So I'm very glad you asked because today is about the process. And now I'm not so sure anymore because if we skip to, so we'll go to the next one. Now we have the Ask AI menu here. If you select text and do a keyboard shortcut, that's really easy. You get that menu and you run through it. You don't have to mouse around. So I may very well end up putting something else on top and moving that down. So I'm glad I could answer that. Honestly, it's a new feature and we expect people to use AI a lot in small things. But thank you for arresting me on that one. Yeah, so this is the main premise. Ask AI is to give you information, not to do the work for you, right? With one exception, clean. And this, Tom, goes back to what you're talking about. Because we have a journal built into Author, which you can access with Command Option J at any time. Very often, it's nice to do speech to text because it really works now, but there will be messiness in it. So I've decided based on my user base for this that it's more important that they add a lot of stuff to their journal than that everything is perfectly written. Perfectly written should also be done, but if they just want to say how their day was, if it was good or bad or whatever, speak it. So we've added a new command where you select the text and in the context menu, there's a new command, just 2 days old, called clean. It runs a prompt to clean the text and replace it. So it just removes any obvious errors, but it's made very clear in the prompt that it shouldn't, if there's something it doesn't understand, just leave it. And oh no, there's one more. And Mark and Keith, you know about this one because I've been bugging you. This actually works today. This one is very different. In the map that you will see later, most of you know it, of course, one of the things I need to do is to paste keywords in. So the process so far has been really cumbersome. Go to somewhere like Wikipedia, copy a lot of stuff, go somewhere new, all of that stuff. This one is a keyboard shortcut or context menu, Command Option P. It takes whatever's on the clipboard and pastes the keywords.
And Frode, there's a comment from Keith. Why not just ask discuss instead of ask your question? Why the terminology?
Sorry, that was a little, I couldn't hear so well.
I'm sorry. So Keith asked, ask your question. What about discuss instead?
Oh, here.
Yeah, sorry for the interruption, but yes, I mean that sort of the slash ask you question slash thing. I mean, even just ask you question. There's a possible misunderstanding. What does it mean by you? So I mean, basically, you're just saying, "Can I discuss this with you?"
No, it's not. But thank you, Keith, for highlighting that. The thing is, I don't want to do a chatbot interaction because the big boys are doing that, and I don't think it's appropriate for here. So the kind of balance is, it's great that it gives you information, but it was actually Janine, our common friend, Keith, who, with her journaling, she said it would be great if the AI asks her questions to prompt her. So all it's designed is that if you've written something you're not sure, instead of it giving you all kinds of info, it should look at it and say, what further can you do? So it is kind of a dialogue, but it's very, very limited. Does that kind of address it?
Kind of.
Okay. I'm sure there will be coffee spilt over this particular one.
And Tom also asked, how about an extract keywords command using AI to extract a list of possible keywords?
That's what this is. And it's kind of exciting. Okay, fine. Hang on. I can probably do it live really quickly. So if I go here and just select random text in my my journal, probably something private I shouldn't show anyone in the world, and then I go paste processed and wait forever, and there it is. These are the extracted keywords from that. Now that is in Ask AI, so I don't even, yeah, here it is, paste processed. Here's the prompts. So if you have some other prompt that you think is better, just replace it. It could be extract only city names. It could be whatever you want. I do plan, as you'll see in the very last slide, to make that one a bit bigger. So you can have more of a library. So you could have, for instance, paste in French, paste all kinds of things. Why should pasting not be clever? So thanks for the highlight there, Tom. Did that address what you were saying? Sorry.
And then Jesse has a comment. I think Ask AI is an option to do some actions on any text you select with some predefined prompts like extract keywords to unfold some dimensions of the text you wrote.
Yeah, exactly. And either the selected text, but if you do the keyboard shortcut, which is Command-Shift/, it comes up. And the reason we had slash in front of this one, Keith, is because then you just press slash again. But if you do it now, it will analyze the whole document, which even for a massive document doesn't take much longer than for a tiny document. So for something like a journal, it's really, really good. You can customize it yourself, saying, based on my this, that, and the other, how have I progressed over the year, for instance, right? The final bit on the AI on the left here is information about me as the user. I have written in the field who I am, and it says for AI, so I've got PhD, blah, 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 but I don't know this, a little bit about me. That can be part of the prompts. So whenever I choose anything that is in the Ask AI, it can take that into thing. For instance, I have written here, I'm not well educated in this and that and the other, so it may emphasize that for me. It's a basic way of customizing the AI. Any question on the AI before we move past the AI world? No, good.
Doesn't look like it.
Cool. So make visual commands clear. The only visual commands in Author are in the toolbar at the bottom, and the design criteria there is what must be visible. If it doesn't have to be visible, it shouldn't be there. So what do I really want a new user to see and a comfortable user to have easy access to? You'll notice that, let's just go here. Bottom on the right, settings, making settings not a hidden thing. And then you have the words, which is because of Keith. Keith, the word count, what also did you do with that many years ago?
Well, I came up with the whole idea, but yeah, it's because that's the only thing most writers care about.
And you put
It
it in
was the
where?
most awkward thing to do in Word in the mid-90s.
So they put it in because you asked them. Come on, just say it, man.
Badgered them for over 2 years, yeah.
Keith was technical editor of Mac User magazine, so he was badgering from a pulpit. So yeah, so this
Frode, there's another question. Why? And Tom asked, why ChatGPT instead of an open source engine?
because it works and it's good and it's easy. I definitely want to move past that answer. That is why it's called Ask AI rather than AI or ChatGPT. I'm testing local LLMs on my computer. I think it'll be very, very important to be able to run that soon. So it's just convenience to start with. I hope that doesn't mean that I'm checking out. Maybe I am. Right.
Just as long as it doesn't become a pair of handcuffs.
No, it's really, really important, Tom. And that's why everything is kind of modular, like the prompts you edit. The dream is that quite soon you go into settings and you choose whatever heck you want.
Yeah, and that's kind of the model I'm pursuing with my own work on the Knowledge Navigator for the same reasons.
Yeah, very good.
Hence the question.
So the exciting thing here, design-wise, I think, is the middle three things. Right, outline, and map. You'll notice that outline is in hard brackets. It took hundreds of designs to get to that because with this font right here is not so clear, but now it's showing we're in the right mode. And when you click on outline, it expands. A key inspiration for that is stretch text, where you have something kind of in a box, you click on it and it opens. So this is stretch menu text. So now you have keywords and citations accessible. I'll show you how that works. But just to get to this, it's been so much fun, so much coffee, and so many cafaneros have been spent on that.
May I mention that Keith also posted in the chat, it could be great in the future to be able to choose hosted online or local AI tools as desired.
Well, Keith, you're going to have to help me with that.
I can't help noticing, because I was looking at that thinking, of course, square brackets have a long-standing notation of meaning something that's optional and not required.
Whatever, Mark.
Well, I'm just saying things, in terms of we're talking about things with established meaning. It's not by way of pushback, but it's worth noting in terms of if things are supposed to be self-evident in their meaning.
Yeah, and just to highlight my reply to Mark there, Mark has been extraordinary with helping me with exactly those established meanings. I will often in the middle of the day just randomly text Mark saying, shall I use this symbol? And he says, are you mad? This symbol is used for so-and-so. So that is a really, really important part of the dialogue. Often it's incredibly frustrating because we want to do something new, but we want to do something new without undermining the prior meaning. So you may have noticed I didn't talk about cuttings. That's because focus, that I'll show you very, very soon, became much more prominent. So it's been added while making this presentation last week. Also, on that topic, my programmers over the last 2 weeks have been absolutely phenomenal in making these changes, just like Fabienne has. It's like, I don't know why it's happened, and Fabienne, obviously I know you're here. The quote unquote small changes you made for the WebXR has just been so powerful. I'm so grateful. So there is a slide hyping the 16th of June, but already now, you guys, if you can be here, please do. It's amazing. Right. A key focus for me with a design art background is minimalist design. I do not want distractions because they distract me. That is important to me, not to everybody. But I accept that was just a big gray box. It's pretty, but it's not really skimmable or readable. So what are the highlights a user has available? These are some of the obvious ones, right? And I've decided, even though author can do highlights, it's just ugly. And I remember, Bruce, I'm not sure if you're still here. You said you had to go to work. Are you still here, Bruce?
I'm still here.
Okay.
I'm not exactly going to work, but I have to get a ride to Seattle.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I remember way back in the Mac days, and for those of you who don't know Bruce, first of all, what are you doing here? And secondly, he wrote the Finder.
Yeah.
When you selected something on the desktop, it's called a highlight, but it made it dark. So it was like a high darken. I remember we talked about that a lot. So how you indicate a selection is a big deal. So what we have here is what we called mark text, which is two meanings. Mark Anderson is part of it because he helped me a lot with this. The orangey bit is marked. And the reason for that is highlighting is really, really strong, right? So this, I felt this was more pleasant, and you can see it in different themes. It can also be, if you go into settings, be just higher contrast than the regular text, which is slightly toned back. You can even make it stronger with bold. So you have these choices. But the really important thing is being a student of Doug Engelbart, just writing pretty stuff in InDesign or something is not really, I have to use the phrase my jam because I'm having fun with you guys, but I would never normally say that. Anyway, apply semantic meaning. So if you highlight something, it means something because you marked it. And if you now fold into the outline by clicking at outline at the bottom, by the way, you see how the outline looks different there, Mark? It's one of the myriad of design decisions I forgot to update, but it's been changed a lot. Right. Under each item in the outline, meaning all headings, the marked text appears. The point of this is when I was doing my PhD, there was too much text. I got lost. So here the thinking is that if you yourself just highlight the bits that really say what each paragraph is, enough that you as the author can find it, because a lot of your writing is for other people or yourself in the future. Some of it's fluff. But if you highlight the core bits, it should be really skimmable. That's cool, right? Oh yeah, I'm getting a Bruce thumbs up. You're the only one I can see right now. Okay, cool. I think it's really helped my writing personally. So then there's the opposite bit. Maybe putting some text that is really not highlighted, maybe really grayed out. We called it faded for a while, but Peter and Mark persuaded me to change it to comment. And we don't know, we may change it again. But the point is you write something for yourself, and then when you go to the export screen, you can choose that the comment text should not be exported at all. It should be exported as normal text, or it should be exported as grayed out text. By the way, you can do the same thing for marked text. Point is that your working text provides a different role, a different function from your published text. Right. And another thing for Mr. Anderson, who pointed out, well, that's Mark to you who don't know his last name, pointed out that when you're writing text, your eyes have a different requirement than when you're editing text. So that's why we also have some more stark views, which is more like printed text, because it's the text now again provides a different role for you. So they're not just about being pretty in different situations. And to show maybe what's obvious, to mark the text, you select it, and then you do command single quote, or you do the context menu. In the corners, we had some weird stuff before this redesign. Now all you have is plain text. So you can just write something. And I found this to be very useful. If I'm working on a document, writing in the margin, oh, I stopped working on this section. I need to start there, or I mustn't forget this. It disappears after 4 seconds, but Dini said she would prefer to have it more. So now there is a settings option to keep it. So it doesn't go away after 4 seconds. It's really, really important that these options are to the user. It doesn't scroll, by the way. So if I scroll the central column, those stay there anyway. And of course, they're not exported. I think it's on a timer now. Okay. So focus mode, to me, this is super exciting. I'm sure you all know focus mode, some word processors, you click a key, whatever, and then everything is grayed out except for the paragraph or sentence your text is in. Has anyone not seen that or tried that? Please tell me, because then I'll address it properly. Okay, so you all
I think
kind
you
of know.
should. I think you should maybe address it because there might be people who've not played
Okay.
with Author.
Okay, so in AI Writer and lots of software, I didn't invent this feature at all. I copied it. You can do keyboard shortcut, and then as you see here, only a paragraph is there. It's so you can help really craft the text, and that's fine. It's great for a lot of uses, but for me, even though I have a problem with a large document, it feels like I'm reading it through a letterbox. It's not the right size. You see, it's like, for instance, here, I'm working on the abstract section. Why can I not see the whole abstract, right? So I don't think it's enough. I want to see the whole thought. So I went through and dealt with all kinds of different designs, thinking along these lines. And design note is that personally, and this is why I wish Bill Atkinson would be here today, but he's got a lot of things going on. I want hypercard size screen sizes to work on. That is my personal preference. There's a joke in a movie that certain information is hidden in books. It kind of is. And also in newspapers before, in magazines, on the cover, you'd say it's below the fold, right? How do you get useful information there? I think most of the information in an academic paper, whatever, can be shown on the equivalent of one 14-inch screen type thing. So I've been working on the notion of hypercard type things. That's not fitting with academic papers. I've also looked at segmenting by headings, but technically it doesn't glue back very well. So then I revisited focus mode. And this is why I'm doing this presentation today, because when you see this as a feature done, it's just, okay, obvious. But I really want you to understand that from this perspective, it was really, really mentally hard because I had to reimagine focus mode. And it's one of those drink lots of coffee, do a lot of walking. And I realized that focus mode could show more of a complete thought. So it does this. Okay, I know it looks like whatever, but what it does now, the logic is it highlights, or rather leaves normal down to the next heading, but not the next heading, and up to the previous heading and highlights the previous heading. So now I'm completely sure I'm working on the high resolution thinking section. Now I'm working on the abstract instead of this. The difference between this and this is basically my entire career. It's such a small thing, but it unleashes the text in some way.
Keith says it preserves context, which is really important.
That's the intelligent way of saying it. Thank you. Yes, that's it. Anyone else have any thoughts on this? Because that thought was really brilliant. I wonder if there's any other aspects.
There's an argument to be made that you should perhaps have 3 levels. There's the thing you want to highlight, and unlike the traditional highlight mode, the extended thing where you can still clearly read it, but it is not quite exactly the same as the part you're working on. And then all the other stuff, which has the problem that you can't read it at all. It's just blah, blah. So maybe if you went to 3 levels rather than 2, it might optimize what you're doing.
That is provocative, Ken. That is very provocative. And I'm going to address some of that in the compression section in a bit. But you've now given me 2 months of thinking about a problem. So thank you, and thank you not. Yeah, thank you. Mark, I see your hand.
Just a quick one. There seems a presumption here that you're going to be writing in very short-headed sections. So because if the abstract is more than 1 screen long, you won't see any focus. I mean, that's not a critique, but I'm just trying to get at the sort of design thinking behind this. In other words, it's predicated on a certain style of writing.
No. I thought so too. But thankfully, because it works now, I could test that. Even if it's a long section that's more than 1 screen, the fact that you don't over scroll is really useful. You know, it's like a soft buffer, so that you don't. Like when we did our PhDs, oh my goodness, that was a lot of words. And it was so easy to just, where was I? So thank you for bringing that up. But because of testing, it appears different.
And then there's a comment Fabian made on physical paper, highlighting isn't binary. And I think that's true, because if you look at things, I mean, I wanted to share with everybody the most recent article that I was using for the essay on David Kolb's hypertext as resistance. If you saw what I did with Quinter's essay, you would have, there's just no way to represent that so well in a digital format, because I printed out the paper and I was able to tear it apart essentially with pens and highlighters, and it became a mess. So, Mark, your hand's still up. Did you want to say something else?
No, I'm sorry. I thought I pressed the button to put it down. Apologies.
Dini, that's such a super important point, both what you had said and Fabian said. I'm addressing a tiny bit of that coming up, but yeah. Right. So linking, citing, and mapping thoughts. Linking documents, this is really weird. Normally on a computer, you cannot do the most basic hypertext thing, which is link to another document. So we just added that as a context menu or Command-Shift-D, get an open dialog box, choose your thing, and now it's a link. Click on that link, and then it opens that document for you. It can be a non-author document. So if it's a keynote that I'm working on, it'll open in Keynote, for instance. I find that so useful, especially when I work in the journal. I maybe write too much. It's like, this should be its own document. Cut the text, put it somewhere else, link to it. It's still accessible in the journal. Citing. This is not new, but for context, I think it's important to put it in here. So reading this brilliant paper, copy to sites, keyboard shortcut, context menu, whatever, go to author, paste, and it pastes it as a full citation. Meaning when this paper is exported, it will be this citation will be listed in the reference and it'll be properly referred to from the text. Just here's the basic. Oh, Mark, don't read. I'm sure something's missing. The reason that works is in the original PDF, at the back, it has the metadata using basically BibTeX, an industry standard. So that's copied along for author to parse. That is my PhD. It's PhD in 20 seconds, which is kind of embarrassing, but it works. It's really it's part of the open data standard thing we talked about, because now with LLMs helping with doing conversions and stuff, give it more context, more things can happen. Right, mapping thoughts. Really important stuff, but for my visual graphic design style background, knowledge mapping, concept mapping, mind mapping, all of these things, they just don't look pretty. And it's not just the aesthetic, they can be overwhelming. And here is what you guys brought up a second ago, Dini and Fabian. When you write on paper, you have a lot of interactions you don't have digitally. And if pre-typesetting, drawing and writing is almost the same thing, says Edgar, who just turned 8. I just love that I can quote him here. Look at Leonardo's work. The text isn't digital in a sense, but Fabian has really been helping us understand the power of remarkable, pseudo-digital text in a way. So to be able to doodle and do text is so important. So as we move into XR, I hope we really, really do not leave paper behind. And one thing that Jonathan here has really helped me see, and I can't remember the sentences you used, Jonathan, but it's because of typesetting that type is set. It's not the text itself. It's because it has to fit into blocks on a computer screen or lead type. So the whole point of the mapping thing is to extend cognition through vision to see how concepts relate. My pretentious way is saying augmenting the prefrontal lobe through the occipital lobe. In other words, make it more visual to help us think with text, right? Now, as a design thing, provide a flexible visual thinking space. So that means two things, flexible to create and flexible to interact with. These things are almost at odds with each other. They have to be designed together. So quite a while ago, we had this dialogue that was ugly, too much stuff in it, intimidating, not fun, too many options. And also the design of the mapping could easily become too much stuff, complex views. So what we have now is that it works on the basis of defining something, and defining just means selecting text and then Command D or define. And you get not that dialogue, but you get this dialogue, which I'm trying to make as simple as possible. You just write what you feel the thing is. So if you're studying something, you say, this is so-and-so. You don't have to make it a fancy dictionary definition. Although when you export your paper, you can choose for this to be a glossary. You'll notice that VR and AR are bold. That means that they have already been defined in this document. So this goes under flexible to create. It's literally have a word, write what you want, done, right? We then click at the bottom to map, and here it is. We now click on XR. There are automatic lines to AR and VR because, as you saw, those are defined in XR. Any questions on this beginning bit?
I'm not seeing any hands up and no comments in the chat, Frode.
Okay. So if I now click on hyperlink, it does the same thing. Now, A long time ago, I had a function where you point to the line and it shows why that line is there. So in this case, you can see a hypertext link. That is an example of doing a presentation to you guys being helpful, because I removed that function because it was ugly. Visually, design-wise, I felt that the way the hyperlink, which is the selected one, and hypertext and spatial hypertext, which are the connected nodes, visually, the way they relate to each other was really important, so you didn't get confused. So how the heck could I then make the point to the line text readable without having a line around it? Really stupid. And Keith, I'm sure you would have solved this in 2 seconds, but because of doing these presentations, I decided to play around with the idea that the text over the line, give it a background color and a drop shadow, and that's it. And it works. So thank you again. So doing these mappings can become messy, can be a lot. If you select everything, they can be almost unusable. So that's why it is so important that you can do little things like you can choose to define what something is, completely up to you. But if you do, because that's flexible to create basically metadata, you then have the opportunity to choose what should be shown based on that. And they can also have slight visual differences, such as a person's name is italic to look like a signature. So now you get flexible interaction. You get flexible interaction because you got flexible creation. As all of you will know, working with data and metadata, if you have the data there, you can do more. But adding data, if it isn't joyful for the user, is expensive and painful. So now you can do things like select multiple things and do automatic layouts like this. Nodes, we just talked about the concept. You can also add headings. You put them anywhere, double click, and it opens that part of the document. Web links, of course. And documents, I'll just show you documents, because if you want to, for instance, have a link to something you're working on, you can control click and add it like this. You get the normal dialogue. And now in the lower right-hand corner, there's an option to connect. Click on that, choose the document, shows you where it is. And then through whatever means you want, including the new feature that only works from today, paste processed. Let's say you go to Wikipedia or whatever, and you copy paste processed, and you put in these things. That means that when you then select it on the map, it will automatically integrate with the rest of stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is why we developed the paste processed, because otherwise it's a huge amount of work around. And here you can see what it was. Right, so that was on a 14-inch screen. This is what it looks like on a bigger screen, which is helpful. And I wanted to show you a little bit. You see where it says marked by any chance? It's a bit small. So if you select that, it goes to different things. And excuse me, now it's more readable. The point of showing this one is, this is a very simple system. It's not very sophisticated on purpose. So let's say you want to know if you have marked a document to see what you're working on. Under the image inclusion for author document, all I had to do was write the word marked, and I get a line to it. So whatever kind of management system you want to use, you can just do. So that's the beginning of it. There are many dimensions. There's much more work to do on this topic. And of course, this is related to what we're doing with Sloan. And XR gives us more opportunities and more responsibilities. For the system designers, I'm emphasizing the S in system designers, because this is too important to leave to designers or software developers or graphic artists or philosophers or politicians or any one group. So I'm grateful we're here today to go through this. We also need to do it with everything we're doing. We need to have these discussions. Because in XR, we bring our whole vision, which gives complexity, opportunity, but it can also be a mess. We bring our whole body, and it can be overwhelming with gestures, right? So really briefly, and I'm sure Fabian is a bit nervous right now. Author communicates with the knowledge space we built in XR through JSON. JSON is a bit magical. So going back to the size of the display, this is a nice laptop size. So if we now go to 27-inch, there's a bit more space. However, if you now click in the lower right-hand corner, which is the new innovation as of today, I'll show you what happens. It opens in the headset. because the JSON has been uploaded. So now you can pick any of these things and move them wherever you want in an incredibly smooth environment. Because this presentation today is massively long, and thank you for your patience, I put this heading in here to drill it home. This is as big as the room you're in. It opens as a framed flat thing because it started on a laptop. But if you want to put it anywhere in your room, you can. And the way you set it up is quite simple. I'm not going to waste time on that now, but it's set up. And it's done because Fabien's brilliant notion of JSON and filters. So we really hope to see you on the 16th, where we're going to go through the progress of the XR work. Any questions before I leave this slide, though, on what you just saw?
I'm not seeing any hands up, but it is really nice. This is what I have wanted, right? This is what we had the first year, kind of a teaser of it. And so it's great to see it in fruition.
Yeah, come on, guys, there's got to be a question. I mean, Ken, you have
no questions, just eager. I want to get my hands on it.
Mark's got his hands up. Mark?
Sorry, just very quickly. But what's in the map is a walled garden from what's in the text of the document. Is that correct? So they're not. This is the map is not, in a sense, a view spec of what is in the text. So it's essentially like two documents inside one document wrapper.
This is a super important question. Thank you, Mark. What is currently in the map in XR is two JSONs. One of them is this layout that you see here. The second one is the glossary, meaning the definitions of each term that determines those connecting lines. You're absolutely right. Currently, what is in the text view is not included. Right. So what we need to do, because Author is a commercial project, even though it's tiny, it's really, really important that we don't give me any benefits that another developer wouldn't have. So we're trying to make it as component and as easy to understand for anybody to provide the JSONs from their own stuff to go into this. So that's why we're doing it bit by bit. So perfect question. Thank you. In fact, first time someone clicks on the XR in the bottom right of the map, they are shown a dialogue saying, if you don't know what this is, click this link to go to the Future Text Lab website, and we will have tutorials on there. Right, so the final bit is rethinking the outline. And if you're still awake, I'm extremely grateful. If not, please get some coffee. Almost done. Compressed views also can do different things. They can be for navigation, seeing overviews, flows, and connections at least, right? So many ways to compress text. One of them is, suppose you're writing something and you wonder, have I written about this before? If you use traditional software and you do a find, you have to write that word in or copy it from where you have it, and it'll show up with lots of yellow dots in the document. So select text and Command F in Author is different, because you select, let's say, John Warnock, you Command F, and you now only see the paragraphs with John Warnock. You can then choose to read them to see if you've written the right stuff and go back by doing Command F or Escape, or you can click on any of these to jump to them. Makes sense, right? And of course, you can do keyboard shortcut or context menu. So there are so many possible elements to show in compressed views, and now I'm really talking about outlines. So the kinds of things we can have, and please actively think about this one. Heading notes, like if you've written a little specific thing for heading, the marked text we look at. What about the faded text? Bold text, highlighted text, defined concepts, keywords, and if should they be user-defined or automatic? Colored keywords, maybe, citation, images, bullets, etc. Right? This is the stuff that is something to think about a lot. So I work with columns because an outline kind of maps onto heading structure, and it's a known thing for a document. So the design question then becomes, and this relates back to partly, I think, what you were talking about, Ken. While doing the compression, what should be the default thing? And should there be more than one default? And what does that mean? If there's more than one default, how do you toggle between different defaults? And then the next level becomes, how do you customize defaults? Because it goes back to the issue that settings are set in stone almost. I really want to encourage people into settings, but even someone who's comfortable doing it it's a bit of a faff. It slows you down, right? So how do you do that? Any thoughts or questions on this particular one?
There's some comments in the chat. Fabienne wrote to Mark, not sure if I got your question properly, but modifications in XR aren't saved back to the initial document. And then he goes on to say, not all content is shown, but is preserved and could be shown there. And then Tom Haynes writes, how big a document can this chew on? How many documents can it reference? Are these all stored in a common library or folder?
The first bit, I guess, was about XR. Was Tom's question about the XR view or the map view?
I think it might be the map view.
It's what you're talking about right now in terms of referencing back and forth across multiple documents and so on. It has nothing to do with XR. I mean, it could, but not explicitly.
It's literally the magic of JSON, which I know you know what it is, but conceptually for this, it's literally this, that, and the other. This is this, that is that. So there is no inherent limits. I'm sure Fabian is shaking right now. But until you get to relatively large numbers, the systems now seem to be able to handle it. Fabian, would you have a comment on that?
It is just, yeah, I don't want to hijack this with your slide now, but it is the point of filters being that they are flexible. So if something is missing, if you want to show more, have different behaviors on the data that is not shown or shown, that's the hope. That being said, exactly how to do this, there were discussions on Slack recently about it. Is tricky. Like, do filters call each other? Is there hierarchy of filters rather than just linear? It opens both possibilities and complexity. But I think with what we're doing right now, namely some back and forth and trying to bring different files of different types, I think that's at least providing a pragmatic path.
Yeah, thank you, Fabian. That's perfect. And Brandel, who couldn't be here today, he texted they had a work thing, which is exciting because, you know, Macworld's coming up. Anyway, he admonished us, not admonished us, what's the word? Encouraged us to waste pixels, he said a year or two ago. And in XR especially, the power of these computers right now, I think our imagination is more of a limitation than the technical. Right, so when it comes to compressing into an outline, what to see. So back to the normal document, as you've seen, I'm going to click on outline. And this is what you've seen before also. This is where it has only the headings and marked text. And you may notice that the layout has changed. It's gone through a million iterations lately. This makes sense, right? You fold your document to see heading plus marked text. And then we click on keywords inside the hard brackets down there, and it auto extracts names. This is based on a prompt that I have written and I as a user can change. Anyway, so these things you have control over. And then if you now click on citations, it hides all of that and it shows you the citations you have in the document where they are, which I believe, Mark, you said was almost useful. So I'm grateful for that. In the settings, you can choose, and this is the level below going between defaults, because this is the default, but these are all defaults because they're very easy to click through. So this is the next level of how you change the defaults. In the outline, should you see the marked text or not? And the keyword, should they be in color or should they just be black, right? So here they are in color. Some industry leading people in red, and then friends, and apparently only Keith is on this page, in green. It does make it, at least for me, really quick to skim a document. And it was Doug Engelbart who initially proposed to me playing around with coloring text. And I've really tried over the last couple of decades different versions, and I keep going back to black text because when you're reading, at least when I'm reading, to have a lot of color is really noisy and messy. So there's the notion of when the text is compressed into an outline, what are you doing? You're not reading, you're trying to either navigate to find a place where you want to read, or you're trying to see relationships and context, right? So that is why I keep tweaking these things off when I fold into an outline. What should I see? And that's why I currently have plain outline that you can customize, keywords, and citations. This one is where the keywords are showing the defined concepts, and they are currently italic, which is probably wrong. So if someone has better ideas for that, let's have coffee. It's just that the idea that these options plus others, they take a lot of tweaking. For instance, design-wise, you'll notice that there's quite an okay white background on the sides, margin. That's been a huge design back and forth, because on a small laptop, you want to use as much space as possible. But if you only have the headings, and if it's clean, not like this, sorry, if it's on the left, that's a bit bad. So it's trying to balance. This is normal graphic design, but it's for an interactive system, meaning what you're designing for will change.
And Frode, a comment from Keith: color can be useful, but it does not introduce, but does risk introducing visual noise. It also reduces relative contrast. And he goes on to say, in raising disability concerns. And that's one of the things we talk a lot about, Keith, in our Tom, in our lab, is how to make contrast work so well.
That's
little
really
tiny fonts against, and gray against white. It's really hard to read.
Yeah, these are extremely important points. And since this is a design discussion, one of the design constraints I have is I don't want to give too many colors to the programmers. So the red and the green here would also be the same red and the green in dark mode, so they have to work for both. We can go more, but complexity goes up. And this is exactly why color is there when you need it, not when you're reading. So even if a color may be not that readable, if it gives you a notion of what is there, when you choose to click through, it should go away. Right, and this is a key thing. This goes all the way back to Tom at the beginning, talking about where you are writing. Now, sorry, I've been talking a lot. I'm grateful for you, but just 1 second. This is the 14-inch screen, which is great for maybe writing, like sitting in a coffee shop, having a nice time. But if you then go to a bigger display, like a 27-inch, it's much better for editing. So you can see you basically double the amount of stuff you get in the outline. And now you can see the colors are more useful to an extent. Does that make sense? It is trying to design for two different reading experiences. And as we're building into XR now, we get yet another level, 3D plus other things. And now that you're on this massive screen, you can start experimenting as a user with things like having the mark text and the keywords in color and so on.
Tom, I do the same thing. I have iPads and different size desktops, laptops, and I work across those items because they're Macintosh, right? I can work on one, move it to or have it available on the other, and go back and forth, which is very useful.
So then future plans, 3 things: more XR integration, and the processed paste that you saw earlier. I want to give the user a bit of a system to design what that should do. Right now, it's very, very crude. You should be able to, on the fly, choose what it does. And the top one is better image handling. One of the dreams is to drag an image into Author and not have it appear, have only a text description of it. So when you scroll up and down, you just don't have to worry about that. It's compressed. When you export, that image is included. That's the kind of thing. So there aren't that many great plans because we're doing okay at the moment. And we're focusing as a community on the XR. So in summary, back to this slide really briefly: writing is visual, be able to change focus. Writing is connected, we need to unleash connections. Writing is a form of information compression, so we should change how much is shown. It is really important to emphasize that labeling can constrain creativity. This is one labeling for today. If you disagree with anything I've said on the kind of philosophy or whatever, super great. It's just to give us a language to move on to. So the end, and Fabienne intelligently suggested that I prompt you with some questions. So before I ask you questions, any final questions to me?
Mark has a comment in the chat. It says, it appears, not my area of expertise, that colored text generally needs tuning separately for light and dark, right? And then Keith goes on to say, I find ultra wide text measures make reading slower and more visually strenuous.
Yes, on both of those points. Mark, you're absolutely right to an extent. And we can actually, you have access to this software, so you can have a look at it as well. Keith, you're absolutely right. And that is why reading in a nice column and writing in a nice column is really, really important. But when you're doing an overview like a map, even though it's a linear outline, that's when it is okay, because you're navigating, you're not reading. So choosing how you're dealing with the different roles of the text is important. And then I see Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the earlier question, which didn't really get addressed, but that's okay. So I see how you're connecting up a bunch of different documents and ideas, especially when you were doing the knowledge mapping and stuff. So my question was, how big of a document will this thing process? Is there a limit there?
Not really.
Okay.
Not
So
really.
if I put an 80,000 word book into it, would it choke?
So, well, I have, this is my, no, okay, this is a cut down version of my PhD that I used for just playing around. It's 28,000 words. No, I mean, the short answer is no, it wouldn't. So future of text, if we go to future text 24, where is the?
I mean, so if you were to ask it to say extract all the keywords out of your dissertation, would it do that, and how long would that take?
I have 109,000 words, and now I'm going to click on outline, and here it is. So it's got all the keywords.
Wow. Okay. Impressed.
So Frode, can I ask a question about your dissertation? Did you create it an author?
Yes.
And then how did your dissertation committee read it if they didn't have Macintoshes?
PDF.
Okay.
It was all exported properly to PDF.
And your university allowed that, because most universities have real stringent rules for what you have to deliver for your dissertation, including like margins.
Yeah. I'll address that in a second, Dean. I just wanted to show Tom that, so this is an M4 Max with 128 gigabytes of RAM. And if Bruce, if you're still here, thank you again for helping me get this at a reasonable rate. So yeah, so it is fine in that sense. Yeah, there's no real requirement anymore. These computers are beyond fast. Dini, to address your question, the most important thing for Mark and I doing our PhDs, handing it in, was consistency. So they didn't even care if we did this or that style of referencing, as long as we were consistent and professional. They didn't have very stringent requirements, as long as it looked professional, well done, and not just kind of scribbled up.
Oh my God, I can't even tell you how bad it is in the States with even the ruler lady, we called her, holding the ruler against our manuscripts we had to print out.
Is that still the case today?
Yeah, they still do some of that around the different universities.
Oh my gosh.
I had a user last week get in touch saying, can we please export with the line spacing being 1.125, because that's what I need.
Mark's hand is up. Mark?
No, just real quick, in terms of the other, when you were referencing multiple documents, how do you keep those together? Are they like in a library or a folder together, or how does that work, real quick? And then I'll shut up.
It's a really important design question from this, because, and this is why I appreciate Mark Anderson as a partner in a lot of this, because we look at things very differently. He's much more stringent than me, so he helps keep me in check. What I do is, if it works, fine. So that means that when you link to a document, it needs to stay with the same name in the same folder. So that is for you linking author documents, your own documents. So it is, I'm not trying to change the world with something new and robust. It is just the simplest way that it kind of works. Now, Tom, your question goes further and into XR. If you have a map in something like author that has links in it, should those links be possible to follow in XR? This is where it gets interesting. So I really like the idea of being able to link many maps together. And when you're then in XR, they have to have a way to know that they should go up together. These questions are now beginning to be answered. So thank you for highlighting that they even are issues. Thank you. Mark, I'm going to listen to you, but guys, please have a look at these questions and then I'll stop screen sharing. And if you have any questions like that after Mark, that would be great.
And I do want to mention that I have a meeting at 10 I need to get to, and I'm moderating. So I'll be leaving here about 5 minutes. So, Frode, you'll be moderating without me. Sorry about that. But thank you. I'm going to go on record saying thank you for this presentation and happy birthday once again.
Thank you.
Mark, your hand is up.
It's very quick, so people probably have questions. It's just for Dini is the truth is, I think my university did have a standard we were opposed to use, but they didn't know what it was and were remarkably inept at checking at it. So effectively, as long as it looked all right, that was good enough. That's real world.
No to AI. Which university shall not be mentioned?
Well, when I was dealing with papers, I mean, we were doing design as well, so basically legible and appropriate was the key word. But I mean, I think first of all, Dini, you should show this to the ruler people and then hit them with it because it's nice and chunky.
She was called the ruler lady, and she would terrorize graduate students who stand in line with their 5 copies of manuscripts in their hand and hold up the paper, because we had to have a certain weight of paper. It had to be 20-pound vellum with the watermark. It was cruel. It still is.
It really still is. And I think that, by the way, so Rob asked, are links exportable to EPUB or other documents? Yes, the links are exportable, but that doesn't mean they're going to work. So there's 3 different kinds of links in an author document. One is a web link that'll work if the web works. The other one is a link to a local document that will not work at all the way it is now. And this is something I hope the community can work on together. And then there is internal links, which I think is also very important. It links to another heading in the document, which can be very useful. And these are exactly the issues we need to look at. Ken.
So this is an awesome presentation. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Like many other people in this group, I've been working with these things and the equivalent and having text all around me and trying to navigate through it and have conversations with people augmented by text and you bring AI into it, et cetera. And one of my observations is that there's still going to be a lot of design work to transpose everything you talked about into the space of the text is just all around us in our room. And it just seems like I agree with everything that you said. And it certainly seems to be very appropriate for the flat screen, but there's a whole set of unanswered questions around the text is in my room and it's hanging out here and it's between us and how big is it? Who's it facing? Is it moving? Et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not disagreeing with anything here, but I think this is the beginning for XR of a very long set of research questions.
You can give me neck problems by asking questions like that, because yes, I so agree with those questions. And in this group, we are very lucky because we have the genius of Fabienne. And he did something last week. And Ken, I really wonder what you think about this particular thing. So currently in the environment, when you lift text, it is aligned with the palm of your hand. So it's actually really uncomfortable. You have to move it right? And Keith complained about this last week and on video. So Fabienne saw it and I've complained and Fabienne's been ruminating. So what he's done, I think it's so brilliant. Billboarding, for those of you who don't know, means that wherever you move your head, the text will always face you, right? So what Fabienne has done is when you move it, it will billboard to your head. When you let go, it'll freeze. The interaction of that, it is such a level of elegance. Sorry, Fabienne, to call you up, but it is actually genius because everybody will start doing it and no one will remember that we had issues before that. So Ken, when you talk about these issues of what happens in space, even the actual thisness is a huge design thing. And there is a new app on the Vision Pro on a history of a filmmaker on D-Day. Well worth buying. It's like $5. In the very opening sequence, in the room you're in, film strips appear on every surface. Something we've all seen in various guises, but it just reminds us also what Tom said. just forget about processing power and amount of data. That's all solved. It's all there. And
I just want to make sure I understand. Are you saying that the orientation of the text faces you and then doesn't face you? Is that what you're trying to say?
thank you for asking for clarification. What happens is when you place it, it is wherever. It's billboard. Sorry, that's a very messy case. It's billboarded to your head, right? Wherever you put it. But when you let go, it stays. So if I now move my head, it still stays there. So if I wanted it to be on a wall, I'll go up to the wall and put it there. And when I walk away, it's still there.
Frode, before I leave, I'm gonna say goodbye, but Andrea has her hand up, and I want to make sure that she gets heard.
Absolutely. But Ken, did I explain it better that time before we go over to Andrea? Ken, did that make more sense?
Yes, it did. I've been experimenting with having a large class of text documents, whatever, just always billboard, so that when you and I are having a conversation, we are both know that for me, that text in that location is facing me, and for you, it's facing you. So nobody ever has to ask the question, what is that text you're looking at? And that's a design choice, but it's slightly different from what you're suggesting.
It is, and I'm very much looking forward to you, Andrea. I just want to say that's the kind of choice we need to experiment with now. So I'm just glad we're doing different things, so we'll try each other's systems. Okay, Andrea.
Okay, so first, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me to be here. It's been a wonderful presentation. I am so impressed. I don't have a Mac. I do not use Author.
Oh
But
no.
I was so impressed by all these little things, like some of the stuff you showed. I thought it was like amazing. So thank you so much for even
Thank you.
doing this. So I have like lots of things to say and lots of notes. Maybe I'll even try to type them down and email them to you. But something that I actually want to ask everyone, because maybe this is the kind of group to ask this question in, too. So as you know, like I have a really strong form of synesthesia, which means when I'm creating things or working on a text even, a lot of the things that you showed, some were either instantly, oh my God, this is amazing, or I just didn't get it. I was like, why would anyone even work? Like, I just didn't even like at a fundamental level understand what's going on, or why would anyone even consider that? So it was kind of like funny listening to this presentation and seeing how drastic these two categories are. It was basically either black or white for me. So the thing that I'm really curious, there's all this emphasis on mapping thought, right? So helping you in the process of thinking, right? This is for authors, for people who are creating some new text out of nothing, or putting some words together that have some content for the first time. So the question is then, we're talking about highlighting and colors and titles and summaries, and then even mapping things with lines connecting different concepts. But the question I'm having is, when you are creating a text out of nothing with your ideas, what do you see in your head? Like what is the space of ideas that's happening in your head? Because I'm having a hard time as to why we need these things. Aren't these highlights and connections and things appearing in your head? And I've tried to ask this question to a lot of people, trying to see like what's their, basically a type of interoception, like what is being felt and experienced in your head as you're trying to give birth to this new sentence. and most people cannot answer it. Most people are like, Andrea, I don't understand the question. Or I would ask people, okay, when you're thinking of something, let's say your eyes are closed, you're in your mental space, what's the color of the background? And people again would say things like, Andrea, I don't understand the question. There is no foreground and background in my head. So part of why I'm asking this is because I'm trying myself to kind of tease out what is my experience, and as someone with strong forms of synesthesia in terms of what I see in my head and what other people are seeing in my head, and then what can someone like me possibly say that could be useful feedback for someone creating a tool like this. So the question is like, what is in your guys' heads when you are creating something? What do you see? What do you like feel that like things? I don't know, if anything.
Can I answer that first?
Yeah, please.
Okay. It goes, okay, I'm really, really grateful for the question, and I hope there'll be many perspectives on it. And I also want to say, this is why I would like more of this kind of presentation here, because it's very intimate. This is my thinking. I want to learn what you guys are thinking. I don't want to just see, here's the thing, isn't it cool? It works like this, right? This was literally my soul beard to you. This is what I think about. This is what I background process all the time. Now, there are many things that surprisingly, I think, is almost like a society expectation, almost like to have kids. You got to have kids, right? That's some of it. Some people agree, some don't, but it's in society, right? There is this kind of knowledge mapping thing in our community. You got to have that. You got to have that. You know, text must be free. And it's so much more complicated than anything that's been made, including the silly thing that I've made, right? And Mark pointed out in the early days of doing this, that concept mapping is probably useful in the beginning of a project, right? You're probably not going to go back and forth and you know, keep refining it. Absolutely fine. But there is an additional dimension, and this is what Ken was talking about. I have an expectation of using it, and Peter's not here today, but Peter's talked a lot about memory palaces. That, you know, I'm sitting in my office, and I used to work in advertising, and this was in the 90s. We would have printouts, huge things on the wall. I can really easily imagine that, you know, working on this thing, I walk around and I have the huge thing like a Bob Horn map. That's really what I think about. The actual knowledge structure, in my mind at least, doesn't really exist before it is expressed. But I think that the issues that Ken's talking about, because I'm so grateful for you guys. This is a very honest and intimate team. I have no idea what we should do with that, right? But we are beginning to play with it. So Andrea, thank you for your question. And who else has a perspective on that?
Can I ask for a clarification? What do you mean it doesn't really exist? So you don't have the map in your head in any sensorial modality? Like it's just not in your head at all until it's somehow...
Just really briefly, since you brought it up again, I'm basically born artist photographer. I have friends who will visualize a shoot. You know, you have a model, you know, back in the day when we're doing that, you go to a place, you set them up, do the lighting. I had no clue. I'm a very visual person, but no. Ken, please, your perspective.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out, I'm starting to kind of get this more, that our entire group in our lab at NYU is focused on you and I are having a conversation. And in the course of that conversation, ideas and thoughts come up, and there is an AI present. And I might be just drawing in the air, or I might be saying, I want the text to show up in the course of the conversation, and stuff's happening, but the entire purpose of it is to support the conversation between two and more people. So I don't want you to take what I say in terms of design literally, because I feel as though we're trying to focus on future conversation with text and images as part of the visualization of that. And I think you're trying to focus on a different relationship with text.
When you say you, do you mean Andrea or me?
I just mean, I think this group in general seems to be more focused on there's a corpus of text and I am dealing with that and I'm editing it and I'm creating it and I'm working with it in a more traditional sense of, hey, I open up a Google Docs and I'm doing stuff. Whereas I feel as though what we're trying to do is text as part of supporting conversation between people in some future world where those glasses you're wearing have the power of these guys, which is the near future. Clearly.
That's a really important point. And so my background, as I'm proud to say, and you all heard millions of times, Doug Engelbart was basically my mentor. He was a genius. He had a big vision. And, young guy, I was trying to help save the world and this and that. Every time I narrowed my scope, I could do a little bit. So that's why I've narrowed my scope to text and to this tiny bit of write a paper. So I agree with you, Ken, to expand back. I mean, look at Andrea's work. That is proper spatial in many, many sense of the dimension, right? So yeah, what you saw here today is one person writing one thing. The dialogue is only through, I share a document and then you read it and you share it back. In our community, I hope we can do much more, Ken, of what you do and what Andrea is doing. This is kind of like my fun little side project. It is by no means what I think things should be. And we're a few minutes over, which is fine. Obviously, I'm grateful, except I have to have a birthday dinner, so I can't be too late. It's going to be curry tonight. Now, the first part of the presentation today was really intended to remind, first of all, myself when writing it, and also everyone else, that there are so many aspects to this. And, the human brain can only do so much. So to have this dialogue, when we manage to make something, make it explicit what it is. It's like, I used Mark as an example earlier. Mark and I are extremely different. But we're both obsessive over related things. And I think that is so fruitful because sometimes you can't even understand why someone cares. Like Andrea, maybe actually, if you don't mind, if from your notes or memory, you can go through what were the things that you thought were either brilliant or what the hell's the point? Do you have like one or two examples for context?
Yes. The fading out of the paragraph that you're now working on, but keeping kind of in the active work color the whole section. I really love that. Like I felt, even just from your slides, I felt an instant like on my visual system. So I thought that was brilliant. The issue of, one second. This idea of the screen size information space, or the hypercard screens, I think you called it. You didn't go so much into that, but my imagination of what I thought that could be was really exciting. Because I'm really excited by anything that allows me to manipulate a thought as if it was an object. Because, that's kind of my whole work, I think. And that's coming a lot also through Barbara Tversky's work. The moment you assign objecthood to things that belong to the abstract realm, then you open up all the ways in which you can interact with objects. So if this pencil becomes a thought, all of a sudden I can chew on it, I can rotate it 180 degrees, I can do all sorts of things that I cannot do with an abstract object. So for me, that is the key concept for opening up an entire space of possible interaction in terms of thought and ideation. So yeah, those are like two examples that I have in my notes, and
can we talk?
I have a few more.
Okay, the second thing is really, really important because I think, Ken, knowing your work also, it is completely that. And, you know, Fabian has been working so hard building an infrastructure for us that we're now, because I used to be one of those guys sitting in Soho here in London all night, espresso, talking through the night, solving the world's problems, right? But now we can actually do something. And Mark has been hounding me for the last few months saying, can we just please move objects? And we had a real argument the other day over, he just wanted little balls in space. And I was like, Mark, what the heck do you want little balls? And he had a very good reason. We're talking about, you know, progressive disclosure and all of that. But we now have these tangibilities. So I really want to see many more meetings in the community where, you know, all of you who are building, and by building, I mean anything from a pencil sketch to a fully fledged VR environment, to really show these things. Because, oh my God, we're actually making it. You know, and to have this thought. Okay, so specifically, if you have a thought here, you know, what is it, right? It can be a map in itself. It can be a connection to a map. It can just be one word. That could be enough, or a color that represents for you. But the questions you're opening up there, I think it is the key questions to opening up the future of human thought. So we got to talk about it a lot more.
Can I add quickly before Ken, just even the word move, right? So I think you've mentioned it a few times in the presentation in various contexts, use the word move. So this is like basic kind of language stuff where like Johnson and Lakoff basically. So even the word move in this context, like I'm moving the word, I'm moving that headline from here to here. Even that is assigning objecthood. And it works even for people who are not synesthetes like myself. So it works. And what people like me do is our brains is doing that automatically and to a much, much wider extent. So for example, mint is glassy. So mint is an object out of glass. That's how the brain renders it. But so we know that the brain, even normal brains, have the ability of making these connections because we're already doing it. We're already moving words and moving headlines and everything. So for me, XR is about pushing it in that direction and using the way, well, says me, but using the way synesthesia works is like a perfectly good plan of going about it.
Absolutely, 100%. And for instance, the JSON stuff that Fabienne has helped me make an author to work in there. Ideally, someone should be able to work in author, send the JSON to your space, which has completely different interactions, but the basic knowledge of what it is should be there, and then send it to Ken's space and it'd be something entirely different again. So thank you, and over to you, Ken, and then we wind down a little bit.
All right, I just wanted to first say that I completely agree with what Andrea was saying, and if we frame all this in the Barbara Tversky sense of object permanence and using deictics, and you know, and I said that because that's there and that's in your head now. In terms of our work of supporting multi-participant co-located XR conversation and interaction, there isn't just one type of thing. I walk into the room and I'm in the middle of a conversation and there are knowledge objects that live in certain places. And as far as I'm concerned, not for technical reasons, but because of the nature of what we're trying to do, that's a permanent sign on the wall. That's a wall map or whatever. Something else is the equivalent of a whiteboard. I could erase it any time, but it's just a little note that says, oh, this just happened. And something else may just be an ephemeral thing that's showing up in the course of you and I trying to work on something, and we just pop it like a bubble and forget about it the next moment. So I don't think there's one answer to how this will relate to object permanence. I think certainly it will relate to object permanence, but not all of it will, just as not all of our conversation is meant to stick around.
That was absolute poetry, Ken. Oh, here's my son. Ego, come say hi briefly. I just want you to say hi. No, yeah, okay, take the chalk and go. Okay. Yeah, we're going to have dinner soon. Yeah, those issues is probably why Mark has been pushing for balls in space, because we really need to feel out the realities of this, right? And one of the realities will be like an AR situation where you literally have exactly what you said. And then we're going to go into Andrea's world that's completely messed up, completely non-Euclidean. You know, you're seeing yourself in the palm of your hand where you are on something else. To be able to do this, you know, we worked for 1.5 years and we got hardly anything compared to our ideas, but they're now finally exploding, which is beautiful. So poetic questions. Thank you. Please, guys, continue this somehow. In a week, it'll be Mark Anderson talking about spatial hypertext. And then we have Fabian, who also had to go to dinner, doing his 6-month demo. And for the rest of it, we're just going to have open office on Mondays. But if you can write what you're talking about in forms of articles for the book, just to share with us now, or whatever the heck it is, please don't let this conversation go quiet. And that's it. And thank you. I'm very, very grateful for your presence here today. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.